Good day, good afternoon, or whatever time of day it is. I want to welcome you to this program, the title of which is the GNCPP, presenting a forum for civil society. You might be asking, what is the GNCPP? That will be explained in a short while. It is protocol that I introduced myself. My name is Alan Arthur Fenty. I'll be the moderator for the next 45 minutes or more. I'm engaging in a conversation with Dr. Philip Mozart Thomas, who heads the GNCPP, and we'll get to know more, as I said, about this non-government organization. I'll be assisted in this conversation by Margaret Lawrence and Enrico Wolford, virtually, if not actually, household names in this country. I wish to say, before inviting Dr. Thomas to elaborate, that it is the objective to institutionalize the GNCPP into Guyanese society, especially representative of civil society. And with that very brief background, I introduce you to, I invite Dr. Philip Mozart Thomas. I'm always impressed with the name, and you have to, you feel like saying the whole name, to say hello to the Guyanese public. Dr. Thomas?
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much graciously, Mr. Alan A. Fenty, for having me here on this program to offer to the wider society, the Guyanese society, who I am in particular, or to reintroduce myself, as you had said, and also to give an in-depth perspective on GNCPP, or which is known as the Guyana National Council on Public Policy. Today, I am extremely elated to have this opportunity to present to you, the Guyanese public at large, a forum, a platform, an institution, an organization that can stand within the sovereign system here in Guyana, stand as citizens on the supply side of the sovereign system against the political system on the demand side, to ensure that we have the kind of governance of this country and the management of the resources that our founding parents or fathers have brought us in the independence that they've brought us and the republic for which we now stand. At this moment in time, I am earnest in my endeavor to ensure that the Guyana National Council on Public Policy, on behalf of civil society, as the arch-bearer and the representative of civil society, take their space and to ensure that the expectation interest that we do have from whomever is managing and governing this country is so delivered in a way that...
I expect, Dr. Thomas, you're about to explain just what is the GNCPP in layman's terms.
GNCPP is actually the civil society arch-bearer. More so too, it is a think tank that will be mirroring and providing for and representing and ensuring that the political system listens, accede to, and fully execute public policy from us, the Guyanese citizens. GNCPP will be looking to ensure that in the course of the management and the governance of this country, that we are provided for economic liberation, social justice on an equal basis.
Okay, that was a mouthful.
I'd be
You
interested in
introduced the concept of think tank there. I suppose that'll be elaborated on just a little later. Think tank. And of course, it's an NGO, non-government organization. Would you like to expand on that now? Because I want to ask Margaret Lawrence to have you introduce yourself as a person, an academic and scholar, Guyanese international consultant to the Guyanese Society. But do you want to talk think tank now and more about the GNCPP, or could we get to meet you now?
I would prefer to meet you.
I would be so
Margaret,
delighted
as
to.
the lady amongst us, question him about himself
I
on
most
behalf of
certainly
Guyana.
will. I most certainly will. Thank you very much, Dr. Philip Mozart Thomas.
Thank you very much,
You
Margaret.
mentioned just now that people should listen to you when we're talking about the process and the GNCPP, but why should we listen to you? I've looked at your bio,
CV.
your CV and so forth. It's very impressive. You sit on many boards, you head many boards and so forth. Can you introduce yourself to the Guyanese people? Why is it that we should listen to you?
You know, I always feel as though that as a citizen of this country, as a card-carrying voter of this country, that you are afforded certain opportunities. For me, I am very thankful, graciously thankful, for the opportunities that were afforded to me as a Guyanese and by Guyana. I always look at the things that I benefited from, that in time to come, it will be for service to come. Mind you, that once I left law school through a brief period of practice, I had the opportunity to receive a senior fellowship at the Organization of American States.
Did you grow up in Georgetown? Out of Georgetown?
Yes, indeed.
Tell me about your early years.
I grew up in Georgetown. Actually, I attended Communist Moravian prep school, primary school, under the tutelage of Basil McGowan, Miss Long there at the time, Miss Mendoza at the time, and I think many friends. Benita Yaw, one of my classmates, I can recall distinctively, who had excelled accordingly. Having left prior to going to Communist Moravia, I was at the Fountain AME School, where the Honorable Fred Talbot actually was the pastor at the Fountain AME Church. From Fountain AME School, from Communist Moravian, I attended Central High School. Today I see a lot of my friends and classmates from that time, who have been very supportive and very encouraging.
That Maggie hasn't mentioned in the tradition of proud Berbetians, he hasn't mentioned that he's a Berbetian. Tell us about that, and then let's get on to your academic career.
I always, I'm always reminded actually that my family, or I refer to it as my tribe, is from Manchester. In particularly, from Firish village in the Quarantine.
Indeed, yes.
And my father, whom the wider society knows him as Ulick Thomas, very famously known for a lot of the folk song music. Me go on cold pot in my belly, she tie regal.
Well, when he says it makes me laugh, right? So Ulick Thomas is that, and
my mom, Eileen Thomas, her family and roots are from Buxton, in that regard. But I grew up primarily in Georgetown. My father at the time, who retired as an assistant superintendent of police from the Criminal Investigation Department. At the time, he was in charge of CID Albertown. He was also the head of price control, and also served as an immigration officer with folks like Clarence hues at the time when they were now coming into the field and things of that nature. So that is my foray here. One of the things that groomed me, that I benefited from here, is the National Speech Club and Debating Society out of the public library. While I was in high school, I participated extensively in that program there out of the public library. And so that is what sort of, I was there at the time. I remember one good friend, Andre Osborne. His father was also a lawyer. And I sort of honed myself into the focus that that's exactly the field that I actually wanted to be part of the legal profession. Having admired, my neighbor, God rest his soul, Peter Britton, Justice Messiah, and a lot of these other distinguished gentlemen within the annals of the legal profession, whom actually played a very active role in my life as a kid, as growing up. Was always there to, counseling my parents in many respects.
Yes, your academic background is quite substantive. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yes, indeed. Once I left high school, actually, I worked very briefly at the Guyana Airways Corporation. I did a brief stint there. When I left Guyana Airways Corporation, I had a scholarship, and I left and I went abroad to study. I attained at first a bachelor's in professional studies, and from that I took a second degree at the time, and I recently also attained a Bachelor of Arts in management. And then I went on from there. I went to law school. In between all of that, there were many challenges. There were many diplomas and certificate programs, and there were basically things that I've done to buttress, my background and development at the time. Whether I did nursing and all these different areas that I was involved in at the time, just to buttress myself, to support myself in the endeavors. And I subsequently went to law school, and at the same time I also did a master's in business administration, in accounting and international business. And simultaneously, while I did my did law school, my JD program. So upon finishing law school and business school at the time, I went on just a very brief stint into practice. Thereafter, I was afforded the opportunity, as I was saying before. I was offered a fellowship as a senior fellow at the Organization of American States. I also was named as an honorary political and economic advisor to the then ambassador to the White House, Dr. Odin Ishmael. And out of that fellowship program, I was given an opportunity to attend the Inter-America Defense College, with their Amistad programs at the National War College, National Defense University, and Industrial College of the Armed Forces, and basically studies with the Center for Hemispheric Defense Studies. That was a very gracious milestone for me, because as I look around in the global environment, especially in the hemisphere, in the Americas here, I see a lot of my classmates from the time they're either heading their country or they're heading their military, remember distinctively my classmate, Dr. Michelle Bachelet from Chile, who is now with the United Nations. Upon the end of the program at the Inter-America Defense College, I was required to, by contract from the fellowship, to come back to Guyana to participate in what is called a sustainable development program. And it was required of me to do that in the contract for a 5-year period of time. But also, I had the opportunity there to embark on a PhD program. And so, because a lot of during my fellowship, I had started the PhD program, and so I elected to conclude the PhD program in government diplomacy and international relations. And upon finishing that program, I came back to Guyana, and that was in the 1999-2000
Let
period
me
of time.
punctuate this with respect, Margaret. Like his CV, I don't think he would stop. But fellowships and what's the other word? Fellowships and these scholarships, they afford you the opportunity to eat, no? To earn a living too, besides studying. Because did you employ yourself? How were you employed between I take it was in the United States?
Yes,
All
sir.
of this happened.
Yes, sir.
And then on your return home in the year 2000, you worked somewhere.
Yes, actually, I was attached to very different firms at the time who take cognizant of the fact that I had this contractual responsibility. Some firms, what they would do is a sort of a debt forgiveness of your student obligations, and some firms would allow you in a pro bono way to do what they call external work, or you would do pro bono work within the firm.
Let me invite Enrico Wilford, who must be brimming with questions here, to perhaps begin by asking you all that he wants to ask you about this return to Guyana. Enrico?
Alan, I'm not sure if you're asking me to ask him about the return to Guyana now or whether...
Yeah, no, he was on the verge of saying he returned in the year 2000. But I'm leaving the question to you.
Before he goes on, I'm sitting here thinking, and probably because the program is being recorded in the studios of Sham, I'm probably thinking Shamese or Sham. There's the public out there saying, who is this overinflated egomaniac talking about his 18 full stops and commas behind his name, wanting to do a think tank? What the hell is that? So why is it you think that all these things that you have done would qualify you to have this think tank? And what is it that we need to be thinking about to put in the tank to get the engine of growth running, if I can keep the imagery going, in the country?
And Enrico, thank you graciously. You have stated it poignantly, I might add, to get the engine of growth, that concept in of itself. It is known that society, civil society, is the engine of growth of a society. As I previously stated, in benefiting from the opportunities that I've had, I always felt that it's for service to come, because my perspective on governance and governments was totally different from what I experienced while living here in Guyana and when I returned. It must be noted that given in this dispensation and at this present time, that the world environment has changed tremendously. When I look back, as I've said, at what our founding parents have brought us, the independence that they've brought us, and the republic for which we stand, and I examine the body of work that they have done and what they have brought us at this time, it reminds me that one of the most honorable things that humanity can give is public service, and they have done it well. When I look at this present time, I can see all that they have done is either misunderstood or being squandered. not only so too, they have passed a baton to us. And when I reach for the baton, because in this dispensation and this time, as I endeavor to say what will be my contribution, given that something must be done with what I am afforded for the generation that is to come, I am unable to hold the baton, Enrico, because it's so pimple-riddled with all of the antagonistic and virulous discourse of the day by what you see is happening within the political interplay at this time.
Philip, if I could,
to the
if I could just
extent
stop you, though, and ask you, what is it that what is it that qualifies you, other than to say, well, we got independence, Republican status, and I like to say we got it. I mean, at the time that that Britain and all these other countries that were colonial, they had no choice but to dispense of these colonies. They couldn't afford it. The other reason is that we look at the public service of our past, and we think that we need to continue that. But at the same time, we have not moved in a meaningful way to modernize Guyana. And what is it this think tank will do to move, to modernize Guyana? And if you talk to the ruling party, they will say that they're moving in that direction. You talk to the opposition parties, they're going to say that they have the agenda that will allow us to move in that direction. What is your agenda?
Yeah.
And what qualifies you to so do? I think we tend to be long on rhetoric and short on action.
Specifically, I think I'm aptly qualified, given my academic and professional accolades. That's one. To provide for the type of services that is needed to move Guyana into a different dimension.
Okay, so you're aptly qualified. What are the services? What are the things we need to put our thumb on to get going?
The first thing that we need to do is that historically we find that civil society has never been able to stand up and to take their place and aptly play a role. It always seems to be as though that if civil society or individuals do not take a certain perspective, political or otherwise, at the end of an election process, they seem to have to recoil into a status or state whereby they're either fearful of either being discriminated or victimized. That in of itself sort of irks me. And when I look around the Guyanese diaspora and I see this type of behavior happening, I want to do something to sort of do that. Also,
supplementary, and it's in the context of what you're saying, so you might be able to continue. Since you've been back and you've been going and coming, and now you're back, have you not seen any other Guyanese civil society, NGO, any other organization here capable of doing some of the things you implied that should be done that are not being done? And what would make the GNCPP different?
Indeed, there are many think tanks whom have been operating here in Guyana historically. The difference is that Guyana National Council on Public Policy will not be operating with apprehension or with fear or favor. Guyana National Council on Public Policy fully understands what it is, their role is as a civil society participant